Hey, Caesar. Hey, Mohammed. How you guys doing? Flanagan, Goldfinger. Sound and video okay? Everything working all right today? Let me know. Everything's working great. Thanks, Caesar. Listen, how many of you are familiar? This is with a guy who's a character. I think it was from like the 1920s or the 1930s. His name was what is it? Rube Goldberg. And Rube Goldberg was a cartoonist, and he had these cartoons, but he had these contraptions that were really a lot of fun. Hey, Brian, and I was thinking about the way our watches work. I mean, a mechanical watch. If imagine that uh, we we sort of somehow passed a lot of the mechanical age and we entered into the electronic age really quickly. And so the watches that we had were all electronic. And so you'd have a smart watch or a quartz watch, something other than a mechanical watch. And I was thinking, my God, this it sort of would look like a Rube Goldberg kind of contraption that we have on our wrist. Is that you have uh, the mainspring supplying all the power, and all it does is just applies, I guess, a torque to things, and then it goes down the wheel train through these different wheels for the hour, for the minute, for the second, and maybe some other kinds of things that it has to do. All of this on the torque or the expansion of a mainspring. And then it gets down to the escapement. By the way, that's an escapement wheel. It gets down to the escapement, and it can't move until the escapement releases it, and then it just moves one tooth. Okay. Just one tooth at a time. It goes bump, and then it's released. And then what happens when that happens, it kicks the pallet fork, and the pallet fork swings the uh, the balance wheel, and then the balance spring kicks it back the other way, and it does all of this so that we actually have that's how we keep time. And I'm just thinking, my God. yeah, and I thought, if we, like I said, if we started with electronic mechanics without this would look. I mean, who figured that out? You've got all of this stuff going on through a mainspring and hairsprings and escape wheels and pallet forks. It's just like, who thought that up? And so it becomes really fascinating. I think the more people mess with it, to make it less contraption, but taking this contraption and making it tell time accurately and maybe add a date to it just to show off. I don't know. That's what I was thinking about. How you doing, Idle Time? We ought to name this these kinds of unplanned chats idle time. That's what we're doing. Anyway, so what's on your mind? What have you guys been thinking about as far as watches are concerned? I've been thinking about Rube Goldberg and how goofy this is. There's another thing too. I've got my Fabre Luba here, which is still keeping remarkably good time, and it needs lubrication, and it needs a new gasket, and that's another little project that I'm going to do is learn how to do lubrication. Have any of you guys ever lubricated your watch? Hey, Finnegan the Ninja, what do you think of Zenith El Primero Defy 21? I tried one on and really liked it. The 100th of a second chronograph is probably my favorite complication after the Fusion shape. Boy, hey, Finnegan the Ninja, I like that. You got now; those are unique, unique tastes. First of all, the thing that drives me crazy about Defy Labs, it looked like Defy Labs was trying to catch up with the frequency of a quartz, which is like 32,000 hertz, something like that. And here they're doing 5 hertz and thinking, boy, really. And I'm thinking, geez, they don't have time to think, watching things go by so quickly. But what they're doing, at least they have a good reason because they use it with a chronograph to get 1/100th of a second. I thought it was 1/10th of a second they were working on. Well, maybe they're working on both of them. Anyway, what do I think of that? I mean, the thing about a chronograph, I don't have anything against them. I just don't have anything for them, so to speak. All they do is sort of take up room on my dial. So, but if you want a chronograph that needs that kind of accuracy, Zenith would be the way to go. Hey, fully mechanical, coaxial escapement interests me. So had to purchase an Omega. Yeah. An Omega, to me, Swatch is doing the best it can to ruin Omega as a purely mechanical watch. And I suppose this silicon just takes away some of the fun. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, that I would like. I'll tell you another one. God, what's it called? A detentment. The kind of escapement, a detent escapement, I think, that's used. I like that too. Daryl Pratt had made one for Urban Jurgensen. Fortunately, it was right before he died. And I understand there's some young watchmakers are trying to make a go of it again. I don't know if they've been successful or not. Idle time. I've come to the realization I've started a secondary watch collecting, and it's all Casios. Well, that's different. It's if you go to cockfights and mud wrestling, a Casio is what you need. Casio, a shock, a G-Shock. That's what you need for those. And I would agree a secondary thing for that. And also they're good for bar fights. So I'm 100% for G-Shocks on that one. Idle time. Hi, Allie. How you doing, man? Chili Badger. Hi, Brighton seafront. I wish it was somewhere tropical. If you were somewhere tropical, you'd be all hot and sweaty, and your gator strap would rot. Deadbeat seconds. Yeah. No, that's the funny thing with a quartz watch. They're automatically you get that deadbeat. I don't know why, but you do. Whereas with mechanical watches, you have to do a lot of work to get the deadbeat seconds. Those are cool. A watch with that I really like is the no longer made naturally is the Jaeger-LeCoultre True Seconds. And also they have, I think, their world timer. That's sort of would be on the top of my world timer list right now. Oh, hi, Bone Sierra. How are things in Italy? I'm trying to think. Last time I was in Italy, I was on a cruise ship. I went to Naples, and from Naples we went out to first we went down to Pompeii, visited that, which is fascinating, and then we took a day trip over to Florence. Florence, I'd been there, geez, Christ. I think it was back in the 70s, the first time I went to Florence. And had a good time. It got dragged to a lot of museums, which isn't as much fun. Boy, I tell you, the last time it was in, I think it was in May. I think it was in May, maybe earlier than that when I was in Florence. My God, it was so crowded you could hardly breathe. But anyway, so I hope Maddie, I hope you're in a place where you have lots of room. I hope you're. Hey, Ellie Riza, if you buy a watch online from overseas, how much customs duty cost? And I do need do I need to pay sales tax? Ali, depends what state you're in, but if you're in the United States, it's a real break. You don't have to. Your customs are very low on watches, about 1.5%, somewhere in that range. You're oddly enough, if it's a gold watch, it's even less. If you get a gold watch, they're very, very low tariffs on that. It's on a steel watch, but that was 1.5% on a steel watch isn't very much at all. The reason it was higher on steel watches a long time ago, when the U.S. used to make a lot of watches, they wanted to. Most of them were stainless steel, and so that was why that was more expensive with stainless steel. They figured, well, we're not going to be making too many gold watches. Hey, Tim, how you doing? Buenos Aires. Okay. From Franciacorta. The land of Italian wine. I love Italian wine. Finnegan the Ninja. Okay, what do you think of solid sapphire cases and bracelets? Not a lot. There's this nice woman who she sells these sapphire cases. I think they're about $1,000 a pop, which in some respects isn't bad, but I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. Same thing with the bracelet. If somebody likes them, they like them. I guess they work. But I like a steel case, gold case, platinum case. I have but I think I had one with a wooden case at one time. Okay. Hi, Sherry. How you doing? Do you prefer deployants or pin buckles? Ooh, that's a really good question. I had a really good watch that I had to pay extra to get a deployant, and it didn't work right. It was one, you could just push it like that. Well, I'd push it and nothing would happen. I like them both. The thing I like about a deployant, I guess, is that you don't mess up your strap as much. Every time I take this off and put it on, you pull it out and then it bends it. On the other hand, with a deployant, you just sort of pop it on. But you've got to get one that works right, and some don't. So I don't know. I'm sort of up in the air about them. Hey, Junior, Deadbeat Watches reviewers. Okay. Hi, Rustum. Hola. Recently, I bought myself a Grand Girard-Perregaux Seahawk 7100 in steel and gold. Wow. What a wonderful watch. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Listen, if you get a watch that I recommend and you don't like it, forget who recommended it. That's my advice. Blame it on Archie. He can take a lot of heat. Hi, John B. Rainy Manchester. God, I tell you, rainy Manchester. We're in New England. I think we just like old England, we've been having rain and stuff. It's like, and the heat's coming, and so it's gonna be rainy and muggy. But mostly we've been having not too bad. Today is sort of like we get a break. In the morning it rained, and then I went out for a walk and then got back in again. I should be more careful about the rain in my bands, because these doggone bands cost an arm and a leg. Nerve for a while, wooden watches had a pretty good trend going, and I think they look really, really nice. Unfortunately, I've never found a wooden watch with a mechanical movement. I think you're right. I think the one I had, I don't think it was a mechanical movement. I don't know. I guess you could. I'm not sure what advantage or disadvantage. I guess if you like something really light, maybe made out of balsa wood, have a light watch. Okay, let's see what's going on. Hi, HRM. I really like Rolex models with burl wood dials. Looks beautiful. I like burl woods. I think I mentioned at one time that one of the many irresponsible things I did, I went out and bought a Rolls Royce, a silver spur, and it had really beautiful burl wood everywhere, and including it had a wooden steering wheel. That was a fun car. Had that for 5 years, and it's like an airplane or a yacht. The best day's the day you buy it, and the day you sell it. But that was with the burl wood. That does look nice. What's your opinion of Jacob and Company chronometers from 2000s? They seem to be cheap now. Movements in them look good. Oh God. Okay. Jacob and Company. This is. I guess I shouldn't be as judgy. Okay, I really don't like that in myself when I am. Jacob the jeweler is sort of in one respect sort of an American success story. He came from, I think, from Uzbekistan, and so he came and he took a jewelry making course and almost finished it, but he had some certain talents, and he got involved with, when he first started making watches, I think it was the early 2000s, somewhere there. He really got in. He was making a lot of bling watches that was more bling than watch, but he got in with sort of gangster raps. All right. Well, the gangster rappers liked him, and he also got into some gangster money laundering, and that ended him up in jail. So old Jacob the jeweler went to jail. All right. But he came out and he went back at it again. And, on the one hand, you got to hand it to the guy. I mean, here he was, an immigrant. He comes and he does what you're supposed to do in the U.S. You work hard and you make a lot of money, but you're not supposed to do anything illegal. So anyway, here he did that, and now he's making his stuff. I don't know who does his movements. He was doing some automata, but I think, every now and then he hires somebody to do some movements, and I don't know. I don't think he's ever won anything at the Grand Prix. There was once or twice they let him in on he got to nominations, but that was as far as he got. There's sort of a thing. So Jacob the jeweler, as a watchmaker. I don't think he's a watchmaker. I think he's a bling maker. But apparently his designs, some people really like them. And the automata that he makes is sort of interesting, but not a whole lot. I mean, as a watchmaker, I said, "Oh boy, I got to see what he's up to." I don't. It's just sort of like a sideshow of watchmaking, but that's okay. He's found his niche, and I think he does well in it. Okay, enough of that. I don't want to pick on Jacob and Company. Okay, Rustin, what's next? But uh, oh, his watches are big. Yeah, I don't know. Wearing a dinner plate, huh? Okay, what do you think of these diascid types of coatings on stainless steel that increases hardness? What is the Vickers scale? I don't know anything about that, John. Um, what would the coatings? They increase the hardness. Boy, that's a good question. I don't know anything about that. He made a solid gold diamond studded G-Shock. Good for him. That I I you know, I don't know. Hey, Danny Senti, what's a good beat rate for the first mechanical? 21 or 28 or even 36? How about 18? Why don't we get real? Let me show you. This is one of the reasons I got this watch, is that it's 18,000 DP semi oscillations per hour. Boy, let me see. I got it with this new thing. Somebody told me how to get change the depth of field on that. But I mean, why would you want any other? I guess Danish, I don't like anything more than 21. I'll put it that way, and I really like 18. Sounds like the great American success story. He is, except for going to jail part, but that's okay. I probably have some. I think I have a relative from early California days that used to rob gold stages that ran between Sacramento and a town called Hangstown. If you're going to rob gold stages, you don't do it between towns called Hangstown. They had another relative who was a sheriff. I had a great grandfather who was a sheriff. So hey, I got both sides of that. So this is why I really have, with somebody like you say, it's a great success story. Anybody who gets in a lot of trouble and gets out of it, I think is doing good. It's hard. I know it's very hard for a lot of people because nobody wants to hire them, and there's all kinds of problems. Hi, Zabu. Notification gang entered the chat. Well, okay. Boy, you got anybody with a name, I'll call you ZS. How's that? Because I cannot pronounce a name that is all consonants. I'm sorry, but I'll try. Ali, fun question. If you can save one watch from your collection right now, what would it be and why? I don't know. I never could answer that question. If it, in terms of what I could get for it financially, I would save my Resonance watch, my FP Journe Resonance, because those things are sky high. I'd save it, sell it, and then buy all the ones I had to give away. My Lurique watches, my God. In fact, I got two of them right here. Those are the sum total of Lurique so far. Um, and we've got two more in the hopper, so we're moving along on that. Um, like you say, it's a fun question. Let me ask you the same question. Which one would you save? Yeah. Hey, Eddie, how you doing, man? Okay, that's not your real name. All right. What hat is that? This is the hat, by the way, too. I think I probably told everybody. This is the hat from the Horological Society of New York. They have these goodie bags at the end of the gala, and this. There was a hat. This is what we got. I think it cost like $1,200 to go to dinner on that. It was raising money, so you do that. So this is for my wife and me. So we got it. So they had this goodie bag. Oh boy, it had all this stuff, and it looked really big. There was a hat and a candy bar. That was it. So anyway, that's what the hat's about, Eddie. Okay, no date sub. Chili Badger would save his no date sub. Okay, Danish Sinti. I personally like smoother beats, but damn, just from a smoother hand makes less reliable. Bulova does have a great smooth precision is smart. The smoothness of the beat. Okay, why do I like the lower beats? I'll tell you what put me on to it. All right. Um, when I was looking at all of the top watchmakers, that's what they use. They all have these lower beats and or 18,000. And you look at Roger Smith, you looked at Caribou and Lannon. FP Jorns are 21,600, but you look at all of them and they have these lower ones. I did a video on that. Marco Lang's watches, the Lang and Hein watches. My which one is it? The one is my newer one, the Moritz Grossman. They have 18,000 VPH. So they have this. So here you have the best watchmakers using the lower ones. They know more about watchmaking than I do, so I'm going along with those. Who's the guy? Most of the guys, if you take a look at the watches that have won the most Grand Prix awards, very few of them are 4 hertz or higher. There are some, but very, very few. Most of them are 21,600 or 18,000. So that's sort of like, do I know why exactly they like it or why I like it? Well, I like it because they like it. I'll put it, that's one thing. The other thing is that when you have a slower beat, you got longer times between services. They're in there, you put in some high hertz, and it's beating them up like a rented mule on a mechanical watch. It's different on a quartz watch. They're not beaten up very much. Interesting source of affordable watch with a good movement. Bulgaris LCV29S. It uses a Girard-Perregaux 3200, but regularly sells under 750. HRM, that's a great tip. Those are the kinds of things. There's something else too. There's sort of an interesting road in and out of in-house movements. The road is something like this, is that I think people get really upset, and with good reason, if a watch company puts in a cheap movement like an ETA. mass produced, and then they want $10,000 for their watch. Okay, so I think that's one reason. Um, but then there's, on the other hand, there's some really good movement makers that are not in house, like Agenor, of course, like Vachur, like Crenode. So there are some that are really tip top movement makers. Okay. And so you can have a watch. Now, Girard-Perregaux is used, they've made movements for Vacheron Constantin, I think Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet probably. But that's one of those things, HRM. That's why you like to find those things. Say, hey, here's this watch. That what is it? Bulgari. Now Bulgari's got their own watches. Their Octo. They have the Octo Roma, and that has a BVL 191. And there was another one called the Bulgari something else, and it had a BVL 193 in it. So those are both, I think, in house in a way. One of the best ones that I've found, it was incredible movement, is Chanel. Chanel doesn't make their own movements. They have it done by Finessi, which makes them also for Tudor. And but more importantly, this is something too that really just blew me away. Chanel has I guess, their own movement making source somehow. But they own part of, who do they own part of? Romain Gauthier. Okay. Now, Romain Gauthier is one of the few watchmakers, especially tip-top watchmakers, who makes his own movements, parts. I mean, most of them get their parts from people who specialize in making movement. But Romain Gauthier is into making his own movements. And so Chanel, they got some very smart people there, apparently. And so they own part of Romain Gauthier, they own part of Finessi, they own part of FP Journe. So those are sources. When I got my Chanel Monsieur, the reason I got it, I found it at a great price. I mean, a super good price, because I couldn't afford it otherwise. I've been the same thing with my Urban Jurgensen. I couldn't afford it until I happened to bump into, when they were, Kari Voot and Lana bought Urban Jurgensen, he and some other guys. And so Urban Jurgensen was going to dump their current staff. They gave them, they let Federico unload them all. And I had just gotten bummed out on a deal for what was it? A Daniel Roth Papillon, and that deal fell through at the last second, and I was, crying in my beer about that. And then I found this other one, and so ended up. That's how I got most of my watches. I don't think I've ever paid full price except for one watch. The one watch that I paid full boat on was my Harboring 2, worth every penny of it. That's probably one of the best watches ever for a watch collector, because it's got everything. I mean, it's got a top watchmaker. It's got just everything that you'd want in a good watch, and it is a good watch. On top of that, it is 28,800. But other than that, it's a really great watch. Okay, where were we? Sherry, when I give a lecture at HS, that's when Nico lets me. I don't know. I think, the guy, Nick, I'll probably say his last name wrong, Masuzo or something like that. He's the CEO of Horological Society of New York. And he, I've talked to him. I said, if you need to talk, I'd like to tell him about Larique. And I think some people are not too happy with us because we figured out sort of how to get a really great watch basically by paying what it costs to make the watch. As a result, he's not too sure. Right? We may be. We see. He's got all of these people who are helping out. Now we donated a watch that they auctioned off, and so maybe we'll see. But I don't want to upset any kind of support they're getting because we're pulling the rug out. We're not pulling the rug out. We're just because people who buy Larique, it's not that we would turn around and go out and buy a Kari Butenlanen or something like that. Some might, but I mean, couldn't afford it, and that was how come we got into Larique in the first place, not to screw anybody else. We just was like, okay, well, here's what we can do, and it worked out beautifully. It's been an incredible amount of work. Let me say, boom. We have a bespoke movement. This is the 6802 AGH for Agenor, and this is the 6801. Now the differences in these movements is very, very small because the 6802 is simply an improvement on certain aspects of the 6801. So it isn't a new movement. But the next one, hubba. That is going to be really a nice one. Etude number 3 is the one that, okay. So whether they want me there or not, I don't know. Let's see. Rustam, H.O. Okay, he says, it seems that Girard-Perregaux watches and movements are somehow undervalued by the community. To me, they produce great products. Boston Collector, how you doing? Do traditional watch collectors look at the watch's technology, design, and movements of Jacob and Company, Richard Mille, Biver, and you think they are overlooked? Gurbel Forsey seems accepted. Well, there's a big difference. Gurbel and Forsey make really, really impressive horology. Jacob and Company's not in there. I still don't know why people pay the money they do for Richard Mille, and I don't know what Biver's up to. But he's a smart businessman. I know that. But Gurbel and Forsey, they make very special watches with very special horology. So I mean, they're true watchmakers. Was it Stephen Forsey? And we had a really good talk with him one night, and I was trying to figure out how come more watchmakers didn't use Remontois Egalités, and he said because it's really hard. Hi, Zibaboo, ZS. I really like Bulgari Octo cases. They're a nice design. I agree. I really like that design too. See, this is something else too. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that we tend to forget when we hear like a luxury brand like Bulgari or like Chanel, even more so, or some of these other ones, Fabergé. Now, what we're thinking of, what do they know? As jewelers, they're really good at making cases and really interesting cases. One of the coolest cases I've got is the one by Chaumet. It's got an ETA base movement in it, but on top of that is an Agenor Agonase, these two big, beautiful Agonase discs, not discs, but gearing. So that's something I think that is sort of fun. The Because like the jewelry makers are your best case makers. They're really making interesting and very good cases. That Jacob may may go for that. I don't know. Hey Randy, how you doing? Hi Floodland. Yeah, okay. All right. You got brands like Zenith's going to beat rate. They do. I mean, but what are they chasing? They can't chase. They're never going to catch up with what you get 5-6 hertz, and you're talking about Mad Men speed for mechanical watch. But then you look at a quartz and they're 32,000. What are they trying to catch up with that? I don't know what they're trying to do. Now I can understand 5 hertz if you want, what is it, 1/10 or 100th of a second on a chronograph, but I can't understand it for your everyday watches when the thing is beating the crap out of everything else inside your watch because of their high the high frequency that they have. Solo tempo. That may be it, Brian. That may have been the one with the. I'm not sure. See, the thing is with Bulgari, there was a point where they went from ETAs into started making their own. Now they're owned by LVMH, and LVMH owns Zenith, and so they have also too. They have the temps, the something or other. They have their own La Fabrique du Temps is owned by LVMH, which they make movements. So you have all of this stuff there for them, and I think that probably, and plus the fact that people like the idea that they have their own movements. Hey Eddie, Manusos, I pronounce it Manusis. Manusis. Thank you, Eddie. He's the CEO of the Horological Society of New York as my hat. I like vintage and Invicta watches, and the two best things that Invicta has done lately is to buy glycine watches and to make them 40 millimeters, 1953. Now they need to divorce QVC and get back to their roots. Okay. Or Hermes. ZS Hermes is another good one. Really like Hermes a lot. They have, not only do they have the Vaucheur, they also have, when they won an award, it turns out that they had, there it is. I have to go to the opposite side when I make one of those things. Hermes, beside using Vaucheur, they also use Agenor. Okay, let's see. Hey, Goldfinger, let's see what's going on. Possibly Chanel. Hey, Caesar. We both love Moser. Yeah, I do too. Moser. See, Moser. For so many reasons I like Moser. One of the things about Moser's got us, or at least Malin, the guy, one of the major CEO, he's got a sense of humor. He sees him as having both really excellent horology, but at the same time, if we take things too seriously, we quit having fun with them. And that's what I like about it. There was one misstep he made when he started I guess with Alpine or some motor thing. I guess they still have it. And so they had this great big grand opening, and it just was bump, like sort of like just dropping a wet sack of sand, just So after that, he started having fun. It's just got the watches talking for themselves. Some of the earlier ads that he ran were a lot of fun. The other part is that precise engineering or precision engineering that's part of H. Moser, or owned by H. Moser, I guess, or owned by the people who own H. Moser. Precision Engineering is they've got the Strawman hairspring, and that Strawman hairspring, you find watches with a Strawman hairspring in it, and you've got the same hairspring that's used by MB&H, Cartier Bouton Lannon. So, and if you look at all of these top independents, they have that hairspring in it, rather than, like doing what Patek Philippe did and sort of threw in the towel and went with silicon. What do they have in common with Swatch? I mean, why pay a lot of money for a Patek Philippe when you can go out and you can buy a Swatch-owned company for the same amount? It doesn't make any sense. Because they have, one of the things I noticed is that you've got a lot of COSC, a lot of COSC that are coming, right out of the shop. And the major reason you have that is because you have the silicon hairspring, and so it can meet all of those requirements, the COSC requirements. Let's see what you got here. Caesar, we both. What's your favorite model of if money wasn't an issue? Well, that's a hard one. I've got no use for perpetual calendars. Before those things run out of gas, I'll be long gone. I'm not much into calendars at all. I really like the Vacheron Constantin triple calendar, but I just thought, that'd be such a hassle to set. Perpetual calendar, I like that a lot. I like the Streamliner a lot. I'd probably get whatever their basic Streamliner is, but the other one I like the Heritage. I like the Heritage design. The Heritage GMT they have is really nice. So I mean, there's so many that they have that I wouldn't mind having it all. One of the ones that I like is it's called Smoked Salmon Streamliner. It's a good looking watch. Rustan, can you please remind me of which particular rig you were talking about recently? I was talking about these two. And the new one, you mean? Yeah, we got the new one, Etude number 3. That's gonna have that's our Zulu. That's French, by the way. Eddie, think the advantage of faster beat rate is recovery time after shock or sudden movements. That's an advantage of a faster beat rate? There's a lot of things in there, Eddie. What usually with a lower frequency, you have a larger balance wheel. And a larger balance wheel has greater inertia. And so you can bump it and it's not going to knock it out of place. A smaller one with a smaller balance wheel and a higher rate, you're right. You bump that thing and it gets all right. It gets back to its thing. But I don't know. To me, that's not much of an advantage. You can actually see the movement a lot better. You can see the swing of things in a 18,000. You take a look at a caliber 6 Langenheim and look at that. You can see the way the everything is working together. That's really beauty. You're I don't know. They remind me of the high beats remind me of a nervous chihuahua. They don't do anything for me unless you like nervous chihuahuas. Hey, Mr. Paddington, 1981. So many hobbies have nerds like us agonizing over specs. The car nerds debating leather color, but we have forget about things that actually make the experience. What are you trying to be, Mr. Wise? You want to take the fun out of it? Being a nerd. I'll tell you one thing. I belong in good standing to computer nerds for a long time. And one of the things that there wasn't a computer nerd in the world. You write a program and a real nerd would say, well, that's not the way I'd do it, no matter what you do. You don't want to be that guy. Hi, Gorilla Time. Oh, the Alpine and Moser, yeah, they're sort of trying to recover from that. God, I'll tell you, that was the worst rollout they had. I don't know where they got. It was, you should. Did anybody see that? I guess Caesar saw it too. Here's this gal comes out. Looks like she has a clipboard, but it's not a clipboard. It's an iPad, I think. And she's checking all this stuff like that, and she's walking around. And here we have so and so, and it's a car guy. The guy looks like a retired accountant, who's been watching TV for the last 2 weeks. And he comes out, sort of this frumpy guy, and says, let me introduce you to this other. So this other frumpy guy comes out. And then they got all of these drivers dressed up in their car racing uniforms, and apparently they're watching. And then they have these interspersed videos, these real videos that are really, these dramatic things with their engines and roar and so forth. And apparently, I think the drivers they were like, you couldn't see them. They all had in these new watches. I don't know. That's Rod Zia, 1981. Oh, hey, you're going to visit Langenheim. Cool. I tell you something. This would be a neat thing to do. Getting together with, I tried it and failed. Okay, once. I wanted to do what we're doing with Lyric, but I was hoping I could do it with Marco Wang also. But Marco said, nah, he's too busy. And he said, well, I'll try to get, and so he was going to get Stefan Kadoki and Richard Harburg, see if they were interested. Nah, they're not interested. Okay. So it wasn't, our first choice was Agenor, but I thought, just in case they throw us out, we want to back up. Streamliner is the best bracelet. Yeah, I like that bracelet too. I also like their heritage bracelet. Okay, the Solo Tempo has the BVL 191. It's one of the Brian. It's one of the octaves. I'm pretty sure, but it's called a BVL 193. If sometimes the watchbase.com will be missing something you really need. So in addition, you should also take a look at Caliber Corner. They also have gaps. What else? There's one called Grail Watches. I think they have some really good ones in terms of information about movements. There was a new one I found that had all of the. If I want to get parts for my Favre Luba twin powers, what's the name of it? I'll have to look it up. I have to write everything down. Hey, Caesar. Okay, E3 is our Zulu. Yeah, or Zulu hour. E4 is kangaroo as it jumps. 4, but let's see. Best rate. The tortoise and the hare. The tortoise perseveres to the finish line. There you go, Forbin. That's a perfect way of putting it. High frequency and high precision quartz. Yeah, you want to get a quartz watch. What fun is that? I mean, you might as well get a smartwatch. My wife's got a smartwatch, and it's like she got a really nice smartwatch, and it tells her everything. I think she has me dialed in, so it tells her when to tell me to do something too. Got to run. Take care. Your poor little dog is waiting by the door. Have a great day, Brian. Give my regards. We've been thinking about getting a dog, but every time I think about, oh my God, I've got to do all of that again. I like dogs. I'm a dog guy. You know, it's really funny. I'm not a cat person, but I get along well with cats. Cats like me for some reason, and I don't know why, because I ignore them. Maybe that's why they like me. Here comes the guy. He ignores us. We'll crawl over him. Hi, Michael. I used to get confused with hertz being per seconds. That 3 hertz is not per second a watch, but 6 beats per second. There you go. It's the same thing. You know, it's a good point to bring that up, Michael. It's the same thing with, you see VPH for the frequency. It's not vibrations per hour. It's semi-oscillations. So you have a half a swing is one, and then another swing is another. And so you're really, for each total oscillation, you would half whatever the frequency would be, or double it, one of the two. I forgot which. Alpine presentation was to sleep at. Yeah, I know, it's just sad. Best advertisers making fun of Patek Philippe when Edward remembered his kid and won't give him his watch. I tell you, the watch that I would love to have would be the Icon watch. Now, here's a watch that you talk about watchmakers not only doing something super fun, but it takes a lot of talent. They had I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Icon watch that they made to poke fun at every single other one, but they made it, and it had it was a tourbillon, it had a bezel on it, and every stereotype, typical kind of thing you see with a watch. And so they made one, and the people got so upset at the one of the watch shows that they threatened to kick them out if they did. It was really funny. What is the name of the inexpensive regulator watch with the pocket watch movement? I'll tell you, Junior. Now, the one I have is a perpetual. Cost me $200, and it's still ticking just fine. It was one I got from a guy in Hong Kong. They make perpetual watches. A friend of mine just got another one from them. They're great watches. It's because the guy. It's really funny. This guy, he's very fussy. He's a very fussy watchmaker, and he uses these seagull movements. But the seagull movements he gets are depending on the watch that he's making, and he's including tourbillons. He doesn't. I don't think anybody has a tourbillon cheaper than my $140 one. I got the movement and got the case and made it, and it works just fine. But it works like a tourbillon. but with a lot of regulators, I started to mention a watch project. A lot of students who go to watch school, they have a final product and they have to make a watch, which is usually based on another movement. And one of the projects I once ran into was somebody took a 6498 and then made a regulator out of it. And the way you do that is you have to move the hour wheel up to 12 o'clock, and then you just leave the minute and the second wheel where they are. And that's how you can. That's one way so you have a lot of regulators that are based on a 6498, and a 6498 is a pocket watch, pretty much of a pocket watch movement, even though you find a lot of them in wristwatches. Cats are attracted to your calm beat rate. That's probably it. They come up and they want to be scratched. I'll, pet them and stuff. I like animals. Our whole yard is full of critters. We got squirrels and chipmunks and foxes and rabbits, coyotes every now and then, not too often. Deer come in our yard, bears. Jesus. Cats are like people that don't like them because of face expressions and reactions. I don't know. Cats and I get along just fine. I'm just not a cat person, though. I get along with dogs. I'm a dog person. I don't know why. Anyway, guys, listen. I better take off. Quit talking about dogs and cats instead of watching. Anyway, hey, thanks everybody for coming by. You guys had so many good things that you brought to the discussion, and I appreciate it. So take care, be safe, and have fun with watches.